Hey, my name is Jansen Mickelson, and I'm going to go over a little bit more about my research paper on capoeira. So I labeled this research paper as Capoeira, a Dangerous Liberation. That goes to show a little bit more about what capoeira was and is today in a different sense, though. And we're going to go from the history a little bit into the actual dance itself, as well as understand a little bit more about why it became so popular. But starting out with the history, in the 16th century, Portugal, in order to kind of escape the economic crisis they were in, they traveled to Brazil. And of course, when you traveled somewhere and start to colonize, the Portuguese saw that there were natives there. Unfortunately, many of them died from the diseases that the Portuguese brought, but they also became a little bit more of a mixed race because they started to take them as their spouses. Brazil was initially populated with about 2,000 native tribes. Many were nomadic, many were stationary and farmed the land. But that all changed when Portuguese people arrived there. And among many different examples of colonization, what they have to do is clear off the land and then find some way to cultivate it. And in this sense, much like many others, they went to Africa and they brought slaves in these big cargo ships to essentially cultivate the earth and make it livable for the Portuguese in order to, like I said, escape that economic strife. The problem was that when they brought the Africans over from Africa to Brazil, they didn't realize they were bringing their culture as well. And that's where capoeira really comes in. Without going too much into the close movement analysis, capoeira to many people, as well as the slave owners themselves, looks just like any other dance. It looks like a group of people, much like any other African dance, where there's a group of people around the circle and then 2 to 3 people in the center, expressing themselves, doing their motions, these intricate, very acrobatic motions, and it just looks like a party. It looks like they're having a wonderful time. There's music, there's shouting, there's laughing, there's expressive emotions, but in reality, it's just a front for the dangerous movements that they are in fact practicing. They're learning and honing these skills in order to defend themselves against the slave owners. And what I love about capoeira is that it's actually very much tied to their history. There are 2 in particular masters or mestres that if you can trace your lineage to them, it's really, really a powerful sign. And these are Master Bemba or Bimba and Master Pastinha. And they are kind of I don't want to say founders, but they are definitely an important part of bringing capoeira into a light that's less criminalized. Because capoeira was used, the function of it is that they wanted to fight against their slave owners and escape, and they actually created other tribes of just capoeiristas, or the people from Africa that brought that culture over and kind of separated from the European, the Portuguese mindset in order to grow again. Interestingly enough, when slavery was abolished in 1888, capoeira was actually criminalized because of its dangerous nature, its violent nature. And that's something that's kind of interesting because even though it was a cultural expression of the Africans as they were trying to fight for their freedom, it became a criminal offense to perform it, even after slavery was abolished. But that's kind of where Master Pastinha and Master Bimba come in, because in 1930, quite a while after it was criminalized, it became legal, and in 2008 it became recognized as a patrimony, or as a kind of an art in Brazil. Master Bimba in particular created a capoeira school, and it basically said that it was Brazilian gymnastics is what he called it, but it was teaching and expressing his culture through capoeira. And that's kind of how he kept capoeira alive. In the final part of my research paper, I conducted a interview with one of my close friends, Jordan Simmons, who is a capoeirista. And I actually asked him if he could trace his lineage back to Mestre Pastinho or Mestre Bimba. And he laughed at me and he said, no, I cannot. He's not at that level where he can actually trace it through master. But he did tell me a little bit more about what the feeling and the moral and the values that come from this particular dance and how it helps him. And that kind of leads us into a little bit more of the close movement analysis as well. He mentioned that he started doing capoeira because of the martial arts part of it and the exercise and kind of the freedom of it. But I asked him over the years, what have you learned and what do you think has helped you? And he said that a lot of it has to go with balance and the mental stability. It takes a lot to do, and this is his words, it takes a lot to do a strong will kick. But it has to be a mental motion before it becomes a physical motion. And it kind of gives him the education to not only better himself physically, but as well as mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. So it's definitely a portal for a wider array of learning. And that's where we want to get into the close movement analysis. He mentioned that balance is a super, super important part of it. And that's what you see in capoeira. The body, it uses the entire scope from head to neck, shoulders, arms, chest, hips, legs, ankles, everything, because you're balancing on, oftentimes, just on the tip of your toes. It's not ballet, but it does often mimic that style of just almost floating. But that's where you have to recognize how fast and how the energy is so powerful, because these are very, very powerful kicks and punches and spins and flips that they're doing, and it is very acrobatic. The shapes that you see are, a pin at times, but it's also a circle. Oftentimes they're spinning, oftentimes they're doing flips, and you can notice different shapes that are forming as they are in the same space with each other. And it's oftentimes a little bit farther apart because they're not trying to hit each other during these dances. But when they were fighting against their slave owners, they're definitely in close contact. And it almost always is a quick, well-calculated blow that is going to either incapacitate the person or really hurt where they're not going to be able to come after you again, because that's kind of the mentality of capoeira is being agile and delivering these powerful blows in a quick manner. With the time of it, it's a very rhythmic beat that goes with it. Speaking of the beat, that's actually a really interesting part, because they actually have music to signify parts of the dance and to tell not only the dancers but also the crowd what's going on on the outside. So when it was illegal, just going back a little bit, they had songs that started to say in rhythm form, so people would recognize it, that police were coming, and then they'd stop the dance as if nothing was happening. And that's just incredible that they have this complex communication, that it's way bigger than just a dance to them. It's a way of life. It's a beautiful meaning that they bring to the table from inside, and that's what powers what they're capable of doing. Tennis, water polo, gaming, motorcycle riding, fitness, cleaning, cooking, rocking, working, taking care of babies. Here's capoeira culture introduced into the same dance. Tennis, water polo, gaming, motorcycle riding, fitness, they incorporate a lot of gymnastics. Cleaning. That's why they have a lot of movements from low to high very quickly. Cooking. Rocking is very hard, powerful movements intended to cause harm. Working. Taking care of babies. They love rhythm. Capoeira has a lot of rhythm. In conclusion to this cultural research paper recap on Capoeira, the two prompts that I have chosen to explain are the first one, which is we have studied the evolution of dance in a cultural context by looking at 6 forms of dance: spiritual, social, classical, folk, vernacular, and personal. Capoeira, for example, is a very social dance, as it is generally a group of people, like I mentioned before, and then 2 to 3 people on the inside. Social dances in general are more to express the interpersonal behavior according to the communal standards. So basically, it's a representation of what the community believes put into dance form. And one of the main key factors of social dance is that there are 2 people that are kind of interacting and playing this game. Like I said before, it can be 3 at times when they're transitioning. And that's actually another part where there are breaks in each dance where they can become a little bit more independent of the typical dance. So sometimes you'll see a capoeirista do a flip off to the side as another one's transitioning in, or they'll do a different form of the body, so they'll spin or they'll do a high kick, and it's just kind of a way to fill this space but also give their own personal character and their own personal belief into the dance. It does also focus a lot on how much or how little the dancers interact physically. So during practice, it's obvious that they generally would not be wanting to harm each other, and they're more trying to hone those skills, like I mentioned before. In the real expression and the method in which they would escape from their slave owners, it would definitely be a more contact oriented dance, but it still is considered social. The second prompt is to describe the function and the characteristics of personal dance forms. I am presently experiencing personal dance forms in my everyday life in my interactions with others, because the function of personal dance is to express ideas, feelings, and beliefs of the individual. So it's an intrinsic thing where it's my expression of how I feel, what I think about, and what I believe. Personally, I think that means that any interaction with anybody, a dance form doesn't have to be this eccentric, blown up, amazing feat. It's just basically any movement. So a smile. That's kind of giving off the emotion that I'm a happy person. That's what my belief is, that I want to be happy. So presently, I'm doing that every day with every single person I meet. If I'm feeling bad, I'm going to express that. If I feel good, I'm going to express that. Whether it's through a facial expression, whether it's through a hug, whether it's through being comforting, it just depends on the situation. I think I would want to do this specifically a little bit more in my interaction with family. I think we all can understand that it's difficult, to say the least, and we'll just keep it at that. But I do think personal dance is it's selective and it's deliberate. So every motion, every action has a meaning. If I am having a rough time with my siblings, it's very, very apparent when that is happening. So I'm going to try better to dance my emotions out a little bit more productively so that I can grow instead of hinder the progress or make someone else feel worse about the situation, because it really is an expression of ideas, feelings, and beliefs. that's more public, it's no use to keep it inside if it's just going to hurt and make it worse for myself. Because one of the main things about personal dance is it is about the dancer. It's about the person there. And that's what I love about dance in general, is that it comes down to what I believe and what I want for myself, and what my life should be is kind of an expression of how I show it in dance. That's my presentation. Thank you.